All right. We should be live now on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
The magic of StreamYard. How do I share this? Do I share the link you sent me in the email?
No, don't do that. I think there should be a. So I think you can retweet the link that Kat sends out. She's going to have the updated link.
Okay.
That was a good session.
Yeah, I thought so.
Let's start from the top. I would love to talk a little bit more about pitching and presentation, and instead of just doing it for our members, also share a couple of words for best practices to our socials, because there's plenty of people having a lot of issues with knowing how to present and how to engage with the audience, and especially Swedes, as you also mentioned. Like there's some challenge there. Do you want to just give a quick background to why you are an authoritative on the subject before we dive into a couple of questions?
Sure. It was by accident, actually. I'll try and make it a short story. Jason Calacanis and I were presented with the problem in California that there was people charging startups to pitch at big conferences. And Jason hated that, and he wanted to change that. And he thought it was very unfair to charge startups to pitch at tech conferences, which it is, by the way. In tech conferences, startups should never pitch anywhere to pitch an investor, ever, never. And that's very important that we fix and call that out whenever it's noticed. And so the idea was to make a tech conference and invite all the world's best investors, which we knew, to be in the room, all the tech press to be in the room, cherry pick some fantastic startups, put them on stage. And the whole message of the day is, hey, tech journalists, the world's best investors are in this room. Absolute fact. There was 500 of the world's best tech investors that had never assembled in that way before. And they were all in the room. And the point was, these startups, these 40 startups that are pitching today are not paying a single penny to pitch. Because honestly, the conferences that were charging, the investors in the room weren't that great anyways, but they were charging the startups to pitch. And we said, listen, this is how it should be. All the investors in this room have joined to make a point that they never want the startups to pay to pitch them. That's why they're here. And so we made that message loud and clear. Now, we noticed something tragically about 48 hours before that event started. As they were rehearsing, we were doing the technical rehearsals, the audio video checks with the startups, and we learned very quickly, holy shit, these pitches suck. That's a problem. So we had to do that night, like a 48-hour boot camp of how to help these startups pitch better, because we realized, wow, we just assumed stupidly that startups know how to pitch. They really do not. And so we did that the first year. The event was so successful. The next year it was 1,500. Next year it was about 3,000. Next year it was 5,000. Next year we got to about 10,000 people. And it just kept growing. And every year, because of the bigger audience and the more visibility, that we realized that the importance of making sure these pitches were as good as they could be was key to the success of the event. So we actually went, in the first year, we allowed 6-minute pitches, and then it eventually got down to 3. Each year we cut off 30 seconds, and the pitches kept getting better, honestly. And in the final years, it was like 3.5 minutes. And just through years of doing that, of working with them, and we would have to go through thousands of pitches to get down to the 50 that we would showcase on stage. And those 50, we would spend a week with them, hardcore, like all the time. They'd have to fly in from wherever they were in the world to Palo Alto, to Silicon Valley, and live with us and do a 1-week pitch boot camp. And so over the years of doing this with countless startups, this methodology formed, which I call mental movie making. And it's worked incredibly well. And we have a YouTube account full of all of them pitching live on stage. And they include Dropbox and Yammer and Mint and Aura Ring. And it was a real treat meeting those teams when they were nobodies, with just an idea that they had a little pilot beta product. and, working out the pitch perfectly. And some of them, of course, when you have 1,000 startups, some of them are going to become Dropbox and Aura and Fitbit and Yammer and these, big unicorns. So it's not even a reflect. I mean, the event was good and it attracted a lot of good startups, but we did a lot. There was a lot of startups, so it's not a surprise that we had some really big names come out of those groups.
Yeah, and that led me to, or I guess when you became more active in the Swedish ecosystem and specifically Stockholm, I've seen you in action many times of helping startups do tremendous improvement in their pitching, because the audience are expecting a high level presentation. So you risk losing a lot of great opportunities when you have fantastic traction and fantastic product just because you haven't figured out a way to actually execute the presentation.
Iron Ride. The monthly events, the tech meetups that we do every month at Hilton Slusen, we have 3 startups pitch every month. And here's the ironic thing is I never coach those startups on how to pitch ever. Never. Because secretly, I kind of want them to suck. Because I want to, in real time, stop them and say, what are you doing? Here's what you should be doing. Here, the investor's right here. Hey, investor, am I right or am I wrong? They should have said this. What should they say next? What could they do next that would actually get your attention back? And deconstruct the pitch in real time. So I intentionally don't coach them ahead of time. And funny enough, we've had huge unicorns come out of that too. Iron Ryan very noticeably. I mean, and Fishbrain, and there's tons of them have all come through that event, and it's been really fun to watch, and it helped them with their pitch in real time on stage, because the default is, and Iron Ryan pitch was tragically bad. I mean, they just to prove the point. Sometimes even the best startups are the worst pitchers because they're just real uber geeks who are awesome engineers, and engineers are notably, their skills are in the engineering realm, not in the marketing realm. Yeah.
So on that note, I wrote down a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about. Will we have? Do you have it till 1, by the way?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to talk about easy wins. I want to talk about common mistakes. We already covered a little bit of that. I want to talk about technique, how to engage your audience, storytelling, how to use emotions, why it's about the audience, not you, and then like how you could basically customize your pitch, and and good ways to end pitching. Does it make sense?
Yep. I'm in.
Awesome.
Let's do that.
Sweet. So
go for it.
Let's start with the main one.
Okay.
Key takeaways.
Okay.
What are the easy wins here when it comes to pitching? And let's assume it's an investor that you are very, very interested in continuing with.
The easy wins is what's the best use of your time and energy in making a better pitch? Is that what you mean?
I have in my calendar, I have lined up plenty of investor meetings. I don't have a lot of time to improve things. I want to do things that have tremendous impact, improvements on what I'm doing. What's the easy wins here in order to go there?
Well, you even in the one, we just came out of a 1 hour kind of coaching thing with some startups, and where I think those startups could spend an hour and make tremendous improvements to their pitches. It's this little methodology, that I call mental movie making, and the YouTube video shows you hundreds of of pitches doing it, and the format is really simple. It's you introduce a character and then drama all within the first 12 seconds, and then talk about the drama that the character has. And essentially the format is the biggest change you can make is understanding that your pitch is about the audience. It's not about you yourself. You have to understand and deeply empathize with the audience that you're pitching to. And the more that you can do that, the better your pitch will be. And that is, I think, the first primary thing to change. And then the second thing to change is it's about understanding that there's a particular outcome that you have in mind from doing this, and be very conscious of what that is. And then the format is introduce the character, the drama, have the character discover and learn your product. So the example I can give you, name a startup, Sebastian, any startup, a popular one that
Twitter.
Everyone knows. Twitter. So that doesn't solve any problem at all, as Evan Williams even said. It's like ice cream. No, that's fine.
Let's do Uber.
Yeah, Uber is super easy. So that's a more of a problem-solving startup. Uber is, here's a character. It's his name's Sebastian, and Sebastian, he's expecting. Today's a very special day because his wife is expecting their first child, and she just sent him this text message. And they show the text message: "Get to the hospital in the next 30 minutes, or I'm leaving." And character drama, 30. I just covered those both. Now he's
very
got a
realistic scenario.
Right. Yeah. And now the audience is deeply emotionally engaged. It's like, oh shit, how's he going to get to the hospital? And let's call it 15 minutes. But here's the problem: he's in the middle of nowhere. So how's he going to get a ride there? There's no taxis around. And so he messages a friend, and his friend says, "Get on Uber quick." So he downloads Uber. He clicks one button, and with one click of a button, he sees all the cars in his area, and they start driving to him, and they tell him how much time, not only how much time will it take to pick him up, but what time he'll arrive at the hospital. So he can now message his wife and say, "I'll be there right on time in 15 minutes. And when he arrives, everything's great. They have the child. And in fact, they had twins. And this is fantastic. And everybody's happy. And there's a photo of them together with the twins, 3 days later or whatever, as they're recovering. And you can see just in doing that, you went through a very miniature Hollywood movie of character, drama, problem, how they're going to resolve the problem. It's a frantic race to figure out how they're going to do it. Oh, he does it. Is it really going to work? He is going to work. Okay, great. He makes it. He saves the relationship. They're back together. Happy Gilmore gets the girlfriend from high school or whatever, or the Transformers save the planet from the Decepticons or whatever it is. And tragedies averted. And you went on this emotional roller coaster that, by the way, that the whole fundamental reason we do this is because when you are pitching, even if this is why I said, if you take it from your selfish perspective, you're pitching an investor. From their perspective, they are having a day of pitches, of 20 pitches coming to the office. And at the end of the day, the group of investors get together and say, like, okay, which ones did we like and why? So from your perspective is wrong. You aren't pitching an investor. The reality is you're part of a group of pitches every time, always. Right? That's the way investors schedule stuff generally. So whether you're part of applying to some accelerator or you're on stage pitching a group at a conference or whatever, you're always part of a group of startups pitching, and your goal is to be the one that they talk about and remember when they're deliberating as the judges at the end of which of the 20 do they remember and like. So if you're the most memorable and most likable, you are likely to win because you're front of mind. You emotionally connected with them. So that's why we designed this format, which is optimized for memorability, likability, emotional impact. So the judges at the end, or the investor, whoever it is, or the partner, like when I had my own startup and I was pitching AT&T for my solution, I was one of 20 solutions of startup solutions they were contemplating working with. And it was I felt I had an unfair advantage because I developed this methodology. I knew how to push their buttons emotionally and make them remember me at their deliberation meeting, at the end of the day. So we're just playing with the kind of the human psychology of it, I guess. That's sort of the key. The easy part is know that it's not about the analytical mind. You're not pitching the analytical mind. If you are, you're going to lose. Because the analytical mind, and by the way, almost everyone does this by default. They start showing data and spreadsheets. And the person watching this is like, yeah, data, yeah, those data are that projection curve you have isn't going to work. Your customer acquisition cost, no, it's not going to be that. No, yes, no, mathematical, and it's going to turn into an analytical debate. You don't want that. You want to introduce a character and drama. And the Uber story, I said, at no point in that Uber story are you as the listener going to be like, the Uber arrived in 8 minutes? That's bullshit. I don't believe the Uber arrived in 8 minutes, because when Harry Potter magically finds a broom and jumps on the broom and flies away. No one in the theater is saying, what? Oh, that you can't fly on a broom like that. That doesn't work, because we're from the time we were born, 1 year old, even when some people in their womb, your parents are reading you stories in the womb. We've been read little children's stories and narratives about little characters, the Little Mermaid or whatever your parents read you. And this is not just America. This is the whole goddamn planet is doing this. This is a human phenomena. So parents read children's stories to children before they can speak, before they can read. And we learn about characters. And by the way, if you go and look at your children's stories, you're going to be really surprised to find out just how much drama is in those stories. There's usually shit going down in those stories. The three little pigs, and the wolf comes in and blows the house down. Pick one. They all follow the same format. So that we relate to that deep reptilian limbic system response that every human's going to have, and what Hollywood capitalized on, tremendously. So
let's talk about the structure that you have, or that you're trying to apply. Clearly, like, you need to work on people's emotions. That part of the brain you want to activate, because that's how you get remembered.
The non-analytical part of the brain. And you start that initially by introducing the character and the drama. And then right then, I bring out a character. This is Joanna. She blacked out in an elevator and broke her teeth. And that's the start of my pitch, 10 seconds in. You as a human are like, okay, what's going to happen to Joanna next? That's just human reaction, human nature. And the part of your brain that's listening to the story is the same part of your brain that your 3-month-old, 6-month-old, 9-month-old, 2-year-old self listened to your parents read these stories. You're just going to listen, and you're very curious what's going to happen to this character. And the more that character is like you, like Luke Skywalker, or, Hermione, or whatever the character is in these stories that we watch. What's the Rey, the new version of Star Wars? It's this girl Rey, who's brilliant, by the way. We empathize with that character. We think we are Tom Cruise when we watch a Tom Cruise movie. We think we are in some way magically Harry Potter when we watch Harry Potter, or Wonder Woman, or whatever. And that's, by the way, that's the reason that you're seeing the Black community saying, where's our Black superhero? And that's why you hear women saying, where's our female lead characters? They're saying this because we project ourselves onto those people. And it would be easier for me to project myself onto somebody that looks and feels and smells like me. To my point. So take advantage of that fact when you're pitching, and when you introduce your character, introduce a character that's easy for your audience to emotionally attached to, because they're going to do that. That's part of the process. And so show a character that looks like either them or their wife or child or parents, and give them the name of their wife or child or parents. And they might even be from the same hometown or went to the same university as the person you're trying to pitch to, because then they will deeply connect to that character. And the analytical brain is out the window. And if I come in and I start pitching Sebastian, and the character in my Uber story is, here's Sebastian, and by the way, he lives in, you used to be in Solna. Where are you at now? Where are you?
Yeah, in Bromma. Not that far.
Yeah. So if here's Sebastian, and he's got to go to the hospital in Bromma, are you not now even more tuned in? Right. And by the way, the character, is the name of your, significant other, whatever. It gets very emotional very quickly. And you want that. You want them out of the analytical brain into the lizard, childlike part of the brain, the non-analytical part of the brain, the emotional part of the brain. And you introduce that drama. Then you got to get them to your product or service becomes the solution to their drama. Magically. And they may try a different product or solution, which is your competitor, and it, of course, better fail. And you want to highlight why it fails. And then you're going to say, but luckily they learned about a different solution, which is your product, and they try it, and let's see how it works for them. And they click this, and they do this, and they do this, and they put in some input, and they get out some impressive output, and it solves their problem. And wow, fantastic. It solves the drama. It solves a drama, not just it does something nice. It does X. No, it solves this actual drama that this character had. And it saved their situation. Either, they were going to get fired, because they had a deadline and they need to hire 50 people overnight. So they found some product that allows them to hire 50 people in a night, and it saved their job, or it saved their marriage, or it saved their, some big drama that they had. Not just, isn't it nice that you now have this product that does X, Y, Z? No, it's solving real dramas for people in their real lives.
Yeah. One of the things that came up during the workshop, which is something that I wanted to address as well, is that we have in most companies are started with at least one or two introverts.
Yes.
Most likely very technical and less used to doing presentations or pitching, and even less comfortable doing storytelling and creating dramas.
Yes.
They try to avoid drama, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Swedes are uniquely cursed in this way. Yeah.
How do you how do you get people to get out of their comfort zone in those
Watch Netflix
cases? Watch Netflix.
Everyone's thankfully watched a lot of Netflix, and even the geekiest of people, follow comic books, which are also perfect examples of this stuff, right? Every comic book is the same format of these characters. They had some drama. They saved the world from the aliens or whatever. I mean, even really reclusive, introverted people dive deep into narratives. So it's like this narrative thing is not foreign to anybody, right? They intuitively understand the process. The question is how to get them to be the communicator of the character drama, wow moment, happy ending process. The beautiful part is, and what I tell people, and particularly really deep introverts who have stage fright or whatever, is this formula, this methodology works particularly well for them, we've noticed over the years, because most people, when they try and pitch, try to memorize a script, like every word. And it's quite a lot of words if you type the whole thing out. I mean, we're talking 20 pages of text. And that's a lot of memorization. And then they forget the right word at the right time, and they freeze, and it's very awkward and whatever. And we insist you cannot do that. We insist when they come to rehearsal, no scripts. Don't even bother writing a script. Don't write it down. What you want to do is have chapters, basically. Chapter 1, introduce the character. Chapter 2, introduce the drama. Chapter 3, they discover the product and how they go through the product flow. And there's usually 1 or 2 or 3 of your key features that you're going to show when the character is discovering the product. And the first feature they discover is your killer feature, and then killer feature number 2, and maybe killer feature number 3 if you have a third killer feature, and how they feel about each feature in real time, and then how that solves their drama, and on and on. And by what they're doing is, we call it monkey bars, where when in what's called a jungle gym, where you have a bunch of bars and you climb from bar to bar to bar like this. Okay. So you grab the first bar, that's introducing the character. The next, and then you're going to jump to the next part, which is introducing the drama. And then you go to your first feature that you're going to show the character using, and then the next feature. And you're going to rehearse going through those steps. All you need to remember is, what are my 8 steps? Introduce character, introduce drama, feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, how it solves the drama, happy ending. Here's our team slide. Something like that. So then that's a very easy thing to remember. What step am I on? Step 2. Okay, what's the next step? Okay, got it. And then you just rehearse transitioning from step to step to step. Do not memorize it. Don't memorize it. Just rehearse going from step to step to step. Because I've seen many train wrecks of people trying to memorize scripts and then forgetting a word, getting anxious about it. But when you just practice going through step 1 to step 2 to step 3, and remember the 8 steps, like different bullet points, and then it works out. And we've, over the years, I can say, out of that whole process of picking thousands of startups, narrowing it down to 50, putting them on stage, all of that, the person has never been a factor. It's never been an issue that the person, due to their personality, couldn't do this. That's never been an issue. We've never had that. We have had the case where there's two co-founders, and one co-founder is better at doing it than the other. That happens, but it's never been a case that, like, you know, it's a single founder, you can't do it. Oh, never mind, you're out. Or we've never had to do that. Some people are better than others, but we've never had somebody that couldn't do it.
Yep, that's good. I think when I go on stage and do presentations, I really feel that I have a lot of help with thinking about what are the main outputs or things I want to deliver, rather than memorizing a complete script. So it really ties in to what you're saying in a good way, like just remembering the steps, and then I guess once you're practicing, you get a really good idea also of the flow.
Yeah.
And you can move faster and adapt depending on who you're talking to. So that's one of the things another thing that I wanted to bring up. Depending on who you're talking to, you need to tweak,
personalize.
the pitch. And not only just who you're talking to, but also the context. Is it a 1 minute stage presentation? Is it a phone call? Did you actually meet someone in an elevator where you have to do a real elevator pitch?
Right. Is it?
What's your take on that?
Oh yeah, that's just the reality. The reality is, the classic example is maybe the 3, 4, 5 minute pitch with maybe an audience, or a 20-minute pitch with a very small team of investors or something, or, you know, partners, or an individual for coffee, or, you know, there's these classic examples that you need to rejigger the process to accommodate. And that allows, I mean, again, the classic from the event perspective is like 4 minutes plus Q&A. And by the way, save a lot of the information for the Q&A and focus on what I really try to drive home with people is, again, that you want to be memorable and likable, and to drive that process to achieve that, you need to have this emotional connection. That, because, by the way, when you watch movies, and you just saw this in our private meeting before this, where if I say, I can ask you questions about movies you saw 20 years ago that you still remember. Like Happy Gilmore gets in a fight on the golf course with somebody, right, at some point in that movie. Do you remember who it is? I do. It's Bob Barker, and they start boxing it out on the golf. But yet, if I ask you what was on slide number 5 of the last pitch you saw, no clue at all. None. Why? Because when you were watching the pitch, your brain was in what's called analytical mode, which is not emotional. And we remember things much better when we're in that childlike story-like format. So that's why you can remember details about movies that you saw decades ago, right? And you can replay them in your mind right now, scenes from Star Wars very easily and all of that. So Lord of the Rings, you know, like we could talk about any scene of Lord of the Rings right now and those things are fucking 4 hours long. And we could talk about the scene where, you know, Gollum, you know, tries to take back Precious, you know, and when Sam's sleeping out of his pocket or whatever, it's like, it's all right there in your head. Why is your brain still remembering that? That's really weird. You likely don't even remember the name of the startup that pitched you last time. Right? But yet you can remember details of a 4-hour movie from 10 years ago. That's the power of what I'm talking about. And that part of the brain is so powerful. And we're in this very emotional state. And that's key. And that's why we try to get kids to learn in that format as well. But and all the best memory teachers will tell you, oh, if you want to remember data, you have to visualize it in this tricky way, you know, mnemonic devices, they call it. You picture yourself walking through a room and what's in the different rooms and all that. So it's similar, it's related to that. But the other most important part is this emotional, what I call wow moment, where your job ultimately, and this is critical, And if you don't do this, nothing else matters. It all boils down to this. When you conceived of the idea of your startup as a founder, you had the idea, and that idea was electrifying. And you may have even felt a sort of physical shock of some type. And you might have actually said, wow, at some point in having that realization about that idea. I would argue that your job from that point forward is to transfer that electrical shock and wow that you felt to every team member who joins you, every investor, and every partner, business partner that you have going forward. And when you present it, if you can get them to feel the emotional shock that you felt, they will join you. And if they don't feel it, they likely won't. So that's what we aim for. We design the pitch to optimize that emotional shock transferring moment. And by the way, so does every Hollywood movie. And more importantly, so does every good songwriter of every song you've ever listened to. The songs that you love give you this emotional, almost electrical shock reaction to the song. And the best songwriters intentionally craft the song to do precisely that. And I know that because a lot of my friends are some of the world's best songwriters. And and I was myself, I wasn't successful as a songwriter, but I wrote songs. And the ones, my friends who are incredibly successful at it, that's what we talk about when we have lunch together. And by the way, the whole format of EDM, of which Swedes are very familiar, that process of escalating that tension before the bass drops of do 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 do, and then the bass drops, boom, and the confetti goes off, and then you start jumping up and down like a jackass. That is your physical limbic response to the buildup of that wow moment. You are now feeling that song in a deep physical way that you'll remember, and you can remember that song until you're 80 years old. That's what we're talking about. You can do that in a pitch, and you can now imagine how powerful that is when you're using that in your pitch and everyone else is not, and how likely you are to be remembered out of the 20 startups that pitched that day as part of the jury selection. It's an almost unfair advantage, and that's what is at the heart of this whole methodology.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the do's and none about the don'ts.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about, like, what are the big mistakes that one should avoid?
The classic thing that everyone does, let's just analyze what everyone's doing wrong. They come out and they say, hi, I'm so-and-so. This is me and my partner. And so here's our product. You didn't introduce the problem, no character, no problem, just here's the product. And even worse, they don't even talk about the product generally. You'll get people coming out and just talking about, generally, there's some big market about something. AI is booming, and or they
then
just
my
go
phone
on.
Rings and I'm
And
I'm
by the way,
distracted. Yeah.
Critical to understand. You imagine you have this captive audience. You do not. You are competing with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Every pitch that starts, we've seen this with the live audiences, and this is also why we designed this methodology precisely as we did, because I'm watching the 50 startups I just trained on stage, and I know those pitches almost verbatim because I help write the pitches. I'm now watching the audience, how they are perceiving the pitches. And I noticed that the pitches, the audience gives you about 15 seconds to capture their attention. And if you don't capture their attention in the first 15 seconds, they have their phone right here as you get up on stage. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the next startup. Great. Okay, go ahead. Hi, I'm so-and-so and whatever. And okay, that's nice. Yeah, okay, yeah. It takes that long. That's how much time you have. And you think you have no competition because the other people you're pitching against are not standing next to you. Oh no, my friend, you are pitching against all of those crazy TikTok jackasses, with all their crazy dances. That's the reality. So you have to capture them in the first 15 seconds before they get on the phone, period. Or you lost. Your whole pitch is pointless if you don't catch them in the first 15 seconds. So that's why we intentionally designed the methodology around come out, don't waste a second. Those first 15 seconds are golden. That's your golden opportunity to hook them in that first 15 seconds, and we'll time it with a stopwatch. And you come out, and here's how you hook them. This is the character. Here's their drama. This is Joanna. She just got hit by a car, and her boyfriend doesn't know it yet. Are you listening to my pitch now? If the character looks anything like you in a way that you empathize with that character, then yes, you will. So my job is almost to get you to empathize with the character and their dramatic situation, and now you're hooked into the narrative of what's going to happen to that character. So what everyone does wrong is they come in and they waste the first 15 seconds, and now they've lost to TikTok. Game over. Other terrible things that people do is they come out and they just ramble on and on about the market, and we don't even know what their product is yet and how they're going to address this market. They're like, they come out on stage and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. The airplane business is a $50 billion a year business, and there are flights going here and here and here, and all this data that I have no idea what, is there a test after this? Do I have to remember how many flights are going between Seattle and Hong Kong every day? What's the average ticket price? What percentage of seats are going on? You're just throwing all of this data at me. I don't know how this is relevant to what you're doing. Do I need to remember all this? That's a huge mistake. Don't do that. Because the listener's just being overwhelmed about stuff they don't know how it's contextual to what you're going to show next. And I see countless startups do this. It's almost the default is people coming out talking about the market size. Education's this booming space. It's going to be $50 billion in the next 300 years. And there's every 20 minutes, there's a teacher doing this. And every 5 minutes, a student does this. And what? Wow. Where's this going exactly? And then a lot of startups use 4 minutes of their 5-minute pitch talking about how big of this opportunity is. I have no idea what you're doing. What's your solution to this problem? So anyway, and then once they do start showing their solution, they show it in the context of no character at all. They're like, we built a solution for airline pilots. Okay, so here it is. So now you, the audience, you can come on this website and you can click this and you can click this. And if you click this, this might happen. And if you click this, this might happen. Well, I'm not an airline pilot. That doesn't mean jack shit to me. I don't know if this works, if this is good. I need my airline pilot friend to listen to this pitch to tell me if it's any good. Don't make the audience be the decider of if this feature or product is good for your market. You need a character who is in that market. If you're making a product for teachers, your character is a teacher, and the teacher's watching the product as a character. The character starts using the product. The character loves the product because the character is a teacher. And now you're sending a signal to the audience that teachers love this product. But if you're making the audience project themselves and imagine, here's a solution for diabetics. Now you, the audience member, you're going to come here and you have this diabetics and blah, 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 or even better, you have an audience full of men. Okay, this is a solution for pregnant women. Okay, and now the pregnant women does this. And you as the audience, you're going to click this and you're going to click this. I'm not a pregnant woman. I have no clue what it's like to be a pregnant woman. I never will know what it's like to be a pregnant woman. Why are you asking me to project myself as the person using this product? Terrible idea. So don't engage the audience as to be the user of the product. And by the way, everyone normally by default, when they show their products, they do it in the futuristic context of like past, present, and future. I'm pitching in the present, right? But you're saying, now when you go to this site, you could click this, and then you could click this, and you could click this in the future. This hypothetical imaginary future that doesn't exist. Instead of what every child story, every Hollywood movie you ever saw is telling a sequence of things that are happened already in the past. Humpty Dumpty, any movie you saw, Luke Skywalker went into this bar and then he shot this alien and the alien did this and then Han Solo did this and the jet flew away, and your brain is used to things that have already happened. Every TV show is essentially in the past. That's the story format that our brain, and every novel, every book that you read is telling you a story that happened somewhere in the past. the story format that our brain wants to absorb is past tense. And the problem all startup pitches make is they're talking in future tense that doesn't exist. And even worse, they're just showing endless amounts of data of spreadsheets that trigger the analytical brain, which is the opposite of what you want. Because as soon as you show data, the analytical person in the room is going to say, I don't think the curve's going to go like that. I don't think, that you're going to have problems selling on this time frame. Oh, you're going to try and sell to hospitals? Yeah, good luck with that. Those hospitals are very difficult to sell to, or to the school. So you're going to try and sell this solution to school systems? Oh boy, education system, their sales cycles are 1 year long. Good luck selling to them. And by the way, you've got all these competitors, and all of a sudden you've got the what if snowball rolling of all the potential problems against you and during your pitch. You don't want that.
Let me share a slide from our friends over at Almi Invest. You've seen this before, right?
I haven't, but I'm quite friendly with the Almi. And by the way, this is important that you show this, because nearly every investor who receives a lot of pitches, which Almi does, 500 Startups does, and Dave McClure made his own, here's how I want you to pitch us. Dave McClure, 500 Startups. He invested in 500 startups, and he ended up doing 1,500 startups. It's kind of similar to Almi, before Almi. And Y Combinator has a very specific way that they want to be pitched. Anyone who's receiving high volumes of pitches, and they're receiving thousands and thousands of pitches, they have very specific things they're looking for, and eventually, after a year of headache of searching for what they're searching for, start telling the people applying, here's how we want you to pitch, because clearly you guys need a system. And so this is very natural that they will develop something like this.
Yeah, and why I wanted to bring this up also is that I tend to also fall into that trap of taking what's supposed to be in a pitch deck to just taking that and then thinking, okay, that's my presentation and my pitch. But the verbal presentation and the rhetorics and the storytelling is a completely separate exercise than sharing details about your company through a deck, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, on this slide, for example, those are all the classic things that everybody wants to see, anyways. And you're going to have a team slide, of course. You're going to have a market size slide, of course. Your why now is a great one. The solution to me is your product might even be a short little video of how to use the product. It might be a 1-minute video of showing somebody using the product. What problem are you solving? It's just structure, because oftentimes without structure, entrepreneurs have a hard time structuring what they're doing. They do want to see who your competitors are, and it's normally a grid of, how you're separate from all the other competitors. This makes perfect sense when you generate a slide deck to give them. I would take it one step further. By the way, and it's not just Almi. Almi is a high volume. They're in many cities. They see thousands of pitches a month. And so they need a structured format across their multiple cities where they have multiple managers who are talking about projects, and they need a system, and they need you to fit into the system. It's almost like you're filling out a questionnaire. They could replace this pitch deck format with a Google form where you start. Question number 1 is market size. You just put in the data. Question number 2 is team. Just tell us how many. Here's team member number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Put that in. You could, instead of the pitch deck format, make this an actual questionnaire format, which feeds into a spreadsheet, right?
Yep.
And I might even suggest they do that for their purposes, so that they have the data that they can compare startups to each other. And that might even be more, they might do that in the future when they start doing crazy ass volume. Because when I do a big conference and I say, hey, who wants to, for free, pitch at this conference? I've got 300 investors there. Yeah, you get 1,000 applications in a 2-week window. And I need very structured data. I need to see what are you making per month revenue? How much are you spending per month on revenue? How much have you fundraised already? How much are you raising in your next round? I want to compare that. I want to be able to sort by who's made the most money in the last month. And the investors coming to my event want that database as well. And that's why they're coming to the event, because they're like, show me who's made the most money last month out of the 1,000 startups that applied, let alone the 20 that you picked to showcase. So I would suggest, that they eventually might switch to a form instead of having you write pitch decks, because it becomes even more usable. But anyway, to the point of that I really want to make is that every investor, and most investors are not at the antler stage, they're receiving a couple pitches a day, right? And they haven't got to the point yet where they're telling you what they want in their pitch decks. So in that scenario, and that's a far more common scenario, right? There's countless investors now that you could send your stuff to. Okay. I would suggest calling up the assistant, trying to find the assistant, or going online, Google the investor before you send them anything. Go online, learn as much as you can about that investor. Their kids, their siblings, their parents, what hometown they went from, their college, what startup they were at before they became an investor, etc. AYZ. And then get inside their head a little bit, right? So you know how they tick. Okay, and then when you craft the email, let's use David Sachs, for example, at Craft Ventures, who's arguably the best investor in SaaS startups today on the planet. But he only does enterprise SaaS startups. And so when you pitch him, you're going to say, hey, David, love, your appearance on this recent podcast, personalize it, right? The same way you do when you email anybody for the most part. It's not these cold emails. You want it to feel like that they are understood, that you have some insight into them uniquely as a person, why they are valuable to you as an investor to join your startup, and personalize it, and even learn as much as you can, and then say, okay, so I attached my deck. By the way, I made the deck, tailored it to you as a enterprise SaaS investor. If there's another deck that you think I could learn from, another format that you prefer, I'm happy to send it to me, and I'll rejigger this one for you so you don't waste your time. And personalize it. And if you can, learn as much as you can off the internet. And then if you can't find what you're looking for from the internet, try and get their assistant who answers the phone, who, by the way, is probably the first person who's going to see your deck anyways. Be like, hey, I'm just curious, is this investor, how do they feel about my health tech? Or so maybe you can decide right away that this investor hates health tech, doesn't want anything to do with health tech, and you're a health tech startup. Or you do video games, and it turns out this investor doesn't have nothing to do with video games. You might as well, speak to the receptionist first, and she might be able to tell you, he or she can tell you a lot of important personalization information that you can use in making a much better impression in your email and pitch deck.
Last recommendation. What can you do as a startup to get really clear ask at the end, or like a call to action? People don't understand just how crystal clear you can be in your deck. There is a little bit of a consideration around, you can't publicly fundraise. It's kind of this gray zone of, being able to, if you're in a large crowded room and you say, we're raising this much at this valuation, we do it at the conference all the time. You can say, by the way, a trick, always say that you're hiring, because that shows that you're growing and that gets investors excited. But and here's who we're looking for, the specific roles that we are looking for, because that shows that you have a very clear vision of where you're going to next, right? We need a data scientist because XYZ, or if you say you need a designer, you're a little earlier in your process and you kind of want to have a good design in your deck. You want to give the impression that you do have a designer on your team already. The more later stage team members that you add, like data scientists, that's a later stage thing. That shows that you're really getting into the deeper end of the pool with the product and the development of the service. So,
database architects, there's things that you can put in your deck. Every one of those positions that you are potentially hiring for sends a different signal to investors because it gives them a clue as to where you're at in your development. That's kind of very good practice to do. And then,
do you think they should mention the terms or the like? Yes, we're going to raise this amount, and
I think they should. I think you should just be as transparent as you dare to be. Like fault error on the side of this is exactly, we are raising this much at this valuation. We have this much committed, just as much as you can possibly feel comfortable reveal it. That's my recommendation.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you taking time.
I think most people err and don't understand. In the Valley, they do. Everyone in the Valley understands what I'm saying on that point. But I've noticed startups outside of the Valley have yet to internalize that lesson, which is super. The more crystal clear you are, the stronger of a signal that sends. It tells the investor, oh shit, this person is raising this a very particular concrete amount for some apparent concrete reason. They've already raised this amount. That's very valuable data. The valuation is super critical, or the format if you're doing a cap note or an uncapped note or whatever. And you could even say, and here's what you probably should have mentioned what you're going to use the money for earlier in the deck. But in terms of and then the time frame of the fundraise, next month we're going to start fundraising, say that, or what the window is in terms of the calendar. And we're looking for investors that fit this profile. You can even kind of pre-qualify them and say, we're looking for investors that have a background in X, Y, or Z. Or we're also looking for team members who fit these particular roles. Ask away. That's your opportunity. I mean, you were given stage time. Let the whole audience know, because by the way, you think you're pitching, one or two particular people in the room. You got that whole room. And if you do it right, they might know the role of the person you're looking to hire or some other investor that fits that category or whatever. So that's your golden opportunity. The ask is really your time to shine and take advantage of it. Why wouldn't you? Yeah. And with a very strong, very crystal clear ask.
Do you think a sense of urgency is beneficial in this case? Let's say we're going to raise a round of funding. It's going to be X amount of money, and we're going to close in blah, blah, blah. So if you wanted to get in, train leaves the station soon. Or what do you think about the sense of urgency factor?
Well, the sense of urgency, that's a timing issue, and it's relevant to when you decided to start publicly participating in situations where you're, right? It's more important to be real than to make fake urgency.
Yep.
Because the honesty factor can sink your ship if you're exposed to be, and I think Swedes are really smart about this. They generally are honest to a fault. So this is more of my message to Americans, which is because Americans are more prone to dabbling in the fantasy of these things. They're a little more liberal with the facts or the truth. So I think it's incredibly important to be very factual and realistic, and time your fundraising window and time when you're going to pitch. You can say, we're actually not fundraising right now. And sometimes that's the best thing you can say, honestly, because they're like, oh, well, shit. Well, why aren't you fundraising right now? And you can say, but we expect to again, and 4 months from now. And by the way, sometimes that's also the best thing you can say. Why? Because the really smart investors are going to be like, I want to talk to you now before the window opens and all the other investors want to talk to you. That's how smart investors think. They see an opportunity. I'm going to be able to engage with you while the window's closed, get to know you a little bit, gives me 4 months to kind of wine and dine you before the window opens and everyone wants to jump in. So that I would even encourage that. And by the way, you can often delay that fundraising window down the road, and that's not you don't look like a liar for doing that, right? no one's going to accuse you. Oh, you said you were going to fundraise 6 months from now, and now it's been 6 months and you're not fundraising. No one's going to do that. So you get a lot of flexibility in taking that approach. But that basically gives you a free runway to go participate and pitch at events and do your big ask to help find team members and potential future investors, because you know the character of the investors you want to have, even if you're not fundraising at the moment. We're going to fundraise in 6 months, and we're going to be looking for investors who have a background in SaaS or in enterprise or in med tech or food tech or whatever it is. And, 6 months from now. Yeah, I highly encourage that. And I think investors even get more excited when the fundraising is down the road a ways.
Yep.
Because when you start saying we're fundraising right now, they think, oh, I've got a deadline that I got to meet with you and do all this stuff on.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of people dating you, and I got to fight for a spot on your calendar, and all that. And generally, I think you'll get more genuine interest. And that's what you want, is genuine interest, not greedy. Oh, I just got to make sure I get a meeting with you so I don't miss the train if someone else gets in. So I think if you had the choice, of course, that this fundraising event is happening in 5 months, the investor who comes and talks to you after your pitch, take a meeting with them, because that's probably somebody who genuinely wants to learn what you're really doing. And more so than the one who says, oh, we're fundraising right now. In fact, the window closes next week. Everyone who comes to meet with you, they're partly doing it out of FOMO, that they want to make sure that they saw it, because all their investor friends are going to be like, oh, did you see so-and-so's pitch? And they want to be able to tell all their friends, oh, yeah, I saw it. Oh, what did you think? I thought this. Even if they aren't actually even interested in your pitch. They saw the pitch. They weren't interested in the pitch, but now they feel the need to meet with you because the window's closing. They know they're going to have to tell their investor friends that they saw it, that they met with you.
Yeah.
It's a funny game. And it takes time to learn to empathize with the investor's perspective of how they play the game.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest challenges with first-time founders that we've seen, that they are playing their own process. Just like with customers, they have, even when you're trying to sell a customer, they have their buying cycle and their routines. Just like you need to respect the perspectives and the routines of an investor, because they might have the fund might get filled or just be started, or they behave different depending on what's going on in their lives as well.
Oh, completely. The easy way to explain that is pitching parents about, summer camp, and you're pitching them, summer just ended. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm pitching you about summer camp. And they're like, shit, summer was last month. Why are you pitching me about summer camp, 11 months from now? Come back to me in 9 months when I'm making the decision about that. It's investors have a similar situation. And that's just one of 10 different things you need to line up.
Tyler, really good to catch up. We'll see you again, and appreciate the time on the workshop, and good to catch up. Hope the two people who watched the broadcast live enjoyed it. And
my mom, hey mom,
hey mom, and hopefully the stream worked on LinkedIn now as well. I think we managed to get that working, and we're slowly trying to experiment with different formats, because we believe that this is a good way for us to not just keep everything internal, but also share a couple of wise words from our experts. So appreciate you lubricating the ecosystem and being part of it. And do you have how can people follow you? What's going on Clubhouse now?
I think best way is my Twitter account.
Yeah,
which is Steep Decline on Twitter.
Yeah,
like that. Steep Decline.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that's where they can get notifications on.
Yeah. Generally, any important shit that I'm doing, and my mailbox is open there, and it's better than email for me, so it works on multiple levels.
Enjoy your beach in Thailand. I'm gonna go grab some lunch here myself. Good to see you, buddy. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
You're welcome.